Thank you. I'd like to call to order the February 27th, 2018 Shelburne Select Board meeting to order. First item is approval of the agenda. I have an item to add, and I'm sorry, but I cannot provide any details. And that is for executive session under 1 VSA 313A5 for clear and imminent peril to the public safety. Does anyone else have any proposed changes?
Yes, I propose a change to move number 15.3 to a succeeding meeting.
Second.
I only see 15, 1, and 2.
3 is at the bottom.
I'm sorry, three's at the bottom.
Oh.
The Colleen Haig Award. And here's my explanation for the proposal. In my view, the Colleen Haig Award was meant to be inspirational. It was meant to celebrate the selfless and extraordinary service of Colleen to inspire others in the community to the same. And I fear in the current highly politicized environment that the award will be overwhelmed by other factors, that it'll be diminished by dispute, whomever wins it. And it seems to me it would be in the best interests of the community that we delay it in order to do the following things: to discuss and publicize criteria for the award, a process for it, and perhaps even a change in the decision-making to allow other persons in the community to take part, certainly beginning with last year's awardee. And therefore urge us to delete this item tonight and take it up at a near future date.
Josh, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I agree. Almost for all the reasons that Jerry stated, I think that, and I think others have stated that the goal of this award is to really demonstrate, salute members of the community that have provided exceptional service. And there have been a lot of very reasonable questions raised about the process, the criteria, and how that should be done. And there seems to be certainly no long tradition of when this award is made. So it doesn't seem like there's necessarily an urgency to make a decision with all these questions still up in the air. So I think it's a very reasonable thing to move it off to a time where we can regroup and really address some of the issues that have come up and come up with a mechanism to ensure that it is a valued award and not a denigrated award.
Thanks. Joe, as town manager, do you have any comments about that?
No, the only thing I can think of in terms of the timing, I think we did say it was going to be awarded at the annual town meeting for what it's worth. Second of all, and certainly doesn't seem important at all, I did have to go ahead and actually order the award because I thought that we were going to hand it out at town meeting. Of course, it hasn't been engraved, but just for what it's worth to the board, I did have to go ahead and actually order it, or it wouldn't have been here in time.
Right. And the engraving could occur.
The engraving can happen anytime. I just, if I didn't order until after this meeting, it absolutely would not have arrived in time.
Yeah,
So,
that seems reasonable.
I know this is an item that interests a lot of people, so why don't I give everybody an opportunity to weigh in on this, if anyone would like to? Anyone? No? Oh, please identify yourself. And remember, this is to weigh in on whether we should delay this item.
Yes, and, well, that's all I have to say is yes. I
Okay.
think so.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? I'll let you know my thoughts. I think it's a good idea, Jerry. It's unfortunate that this award, which should be something that we all feel great joy about, and we all celebrate someone who has done something for our community, has become so politicized, and that the personal attacks have run out of control. And I think Jerry makes some very good points. So I am in favor of Jerry's suggestion to delay this, with pointing out that he also said setting up some more specific criteria for the award. For example, there are some people here who believe the recipient should be a Shelburne resident. Some people feel that it should not be an item. Some people think there should be a volunteer. Some people believe it is not necessarily a volunteer. And I think these are items that can be discussed, and we can reach agreement, and it will be a future board that reaches agreement, and hopefully there can be a ceremony so we don't have to skip a year, because we have a lot of people in this town who do a lot of great things for this town. And I would hate to see the partisan politicalization of this award diminish that. So thank you for bringing that up, Jerry. We're talking about delaying the award until next year and taking it off tonight's agenda. So we're going to have to vote on that, of course. We have this. Please identify yourself. Come to the microphone.
John Saar, Harbour Road. You know, I wasn't going to say anything until the chairman weighed in just there. We all know that until Joe Colangelo and you and the board severed the chief under false pretenses, I believe, he would have been the unanimous choice for this award. I do think that the way things have turned out, it is as well, because anyone who gets the award other than Chief Warden will receive less than the proper recognition. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else?
Judy Frazier.
Again, please, these comments are for, we're discussing delaying the
Right.
award or not.
I think that to delay it a year is wrong.
We're not saying delay
Well,
the
I
year.
just heard this in the conversation.
I-
But what I want to say is, I think, Gary, that a lot of this has been brought on by events that have happened over the last year and a half. And I feel the select board are our public servants, your elected officials, your public servants. This is a public service award. And I think that the decision to make a change, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing that you want to make changes. I can understand that. But it should be input from the citizens of this community and not a select board decision. And that's all I have to say. But to delay it, I think we should go forward with it for this year. I don't know how many names are on the list. It doesn't have to be. I've seen some of the battles on Front Porch Forum. I don't like that. But I think that it should be awarded next week to someone. and not delay it a year or do whatever you want to do or delay it later. And that decision as to what to do should be up to the citizens of this community and not just the select board.
Thank you, Judy. I think Jerry's suggestion was not, and please correct me if I'm wrong, was not to delay it for a year. It was to delay it for a future meeting so that I believe, a public discussion could be held in regard to setting forth more specific criteria for the award. And it would be my hope that the board does this, the next board does this promptly so that a year is not skipped. So I think that's what Jerry was suggesting.
Yeah, we just simply need a meeting or two to discuss and get input on the criteria and the process, and then for the decision-making itself. But there's no thought of not doing it this year.
Okay,
I still think it'd be better to do it at town meeting next Monday night. And go with someone, it doesn't have to be.
Judy, if you're going to say something, could you just please use the mic? I'm sorry. It's not my rule, it's VCAM.
I know, they gotta get, well, anyway. No, I just think you need to go ahead. I agree with Joe. He's already got the award ordered. And it will fall by the wayside even if you do it 2 months from now. I'm sure there's a quick way to put something out on Front Porch Forum that everybody can see and weigh in, and then you can see where the cookie crumbles. And you could do that in the next 48 hours. It wouldn't take long to get it engraved, and like you said, Joe, it could be done 2 weeks later or something.
All right. Does anyone else want to say anything before someone speaks twice? Oh, you haven't spoken yet. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Moran.
I think, Sean Moran, I think the misconception when you were agreeing, you said a year, and that's why everybody jumped. You slipped and said a year. I think you meant the
Oh, if I did,
next.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
I don't agree with Front Page Forum. A lot of us are not on Front Page Forum. I don't know, maybe everybody in the room is. And I think if it's as Jerry and you have agreed, and Josh and Colleen when she came in, I think rushing it to town meeting, if that's the process, is too fast. Yes, I think it should be this year, and maybe you can make a special thing of it, but I think that's too fast to get a committee together of public input or some kind of or Colleen herself weighing in on a committee. I just think, it would be nice, but I think it's too late for town meeting if we are indeed considering your proposal.
Okay, thank you. There is one other change to the agenda. I just forgot, a minor one, and that is item 3, where it says, consider approving select board meeting minutes of February 13th, 20th, and 22nd. We have the 13th, but the 20th was just the candidates forum, and the 22nd was the pinning ceremony for Chief Noble. At both of those events, without notice, there turned out to be a quorum of the board, so this will have some minutes that Joe will draft up that we will address in.
We can't approve them tonight because Jamie was part of the quorum for both of those
Yeah,
events.
we need Jamie for his vote, and besides, they're not written. And so it'll take place just before town meeting. This is something that boards have to go through every year when there's a changeover in boards. You want to approve all the minutes while you have the people who were participants still present. So we have 3 changes. I think everyone's going to be in agreement on all 3. So unless anyone on the board wants to do it separately,
No.
I'd entertain,
Sorry, I just want to say one thing, especially about the warden, or the Colleen Haig Award. Judy, I didn't know she was going to be here, but since she is, I'll go ahead and embarrass her.
oh, the picture.
But I just do want to acknowledge that Judy is my personal consultant at times. I called her up when we came up with this idea of the Colleen Haig Award, and I called up Judy and asked her, well, is there a sort of a material or something that we could make this award to make it more meaningful? And Judy's the one who came up, with the idea to design it from the silver bowl that the 9th Earl of Shelburne brought to Shelburne in 1963. And not only that, but she put me in contact with the 9th Earl of Shelburne, who I communicated with and asked permission from him if we could use his family's silver bowl as part of this award. And of course, he was very gracious in doing that. And Judy is here, so I thought I would tell that story. Thank you, Judy.
So, with those three, 4 changes?
No, the 3 changes are no approval of minutes for the 20th and 22nd, and for the Colleen Haig Award.
And removing subsection 3 from item 15 and adding a new subsection 3 pursuant to 1 VSA 313A5 to discuss a clear and imminent peril to the public safety. So with those changes, someone like to move to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Jerry, is there a second? Seconded by Josh, any further discussion? Hearing none, just in time?
Thank you. If there's a clear and imminent danger to the town, shouldn't we all know about that?
You know, it's a great question, and I am unfortunately, and this board, the town manager, unfortunately, cannot discuss this at this time. I'm sorry, but we simply can't do it.
Are we in danger?
Well, there's a clear and imminent danger. As soon as we are able to discuss it, I can tell you, we will let everyone know immediately, as soon as we are able.
So if there was an action to be taken, that would be after that.
It's a police matter right now.
Okay.
Okay, so now you know why we can't discuss it.
Came up today.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes. Next item is to consider approving the minutes of February 13th. Anyone has any proposed changes?
The only change I have, and it's not critical, I just, for clarity, on page 4, on the, I guess it's the second paragraph, it stated that you pointed, Gary Fonstange pointed out that the select board is the only board that can change the ordinance, whereas the topic was about a policy. So I just wonder, I think you meant the ethics ordinance in that thing, and it may be worthwhile inserting ethics ordinance just to make for clarity.
What? I believe this is, what was just,
to the ethics ordinance.
yeah, my reference was to the ethics ordinance. I think it is correct.
Correct, but the whole topic was about the personnel policy. That was the area of confusion. So,
I'm
because
sorry.
the second line is, this is the question whether changes to the personnel policy. So we're talking about both the personnel policy and the ethics ordinance, and I just thought that adding ethics ordinance to that would clarify the difference between the two.
I don't know exactly what he said, so I don't know if I can, without reviewing it.
You know, I haven't reviewed it. I was clearly referring to the ethics ordinance, as Josh correctly points out. So I don't, it needs to reflect what was said. I can't remember if I said ordinance or if I said ethics ordinance. But if you want to add ethics, I'm fine with it.
I was just trying to be, add
Do you
clarity.
do you still want to add it?
I think it would, you know, for historical purposes, whatever.
Okay, it's fine with me.
It would
Fine with
be-
everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, it's fine with me. With that change, someone like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Jerry, is there seconded?
Second.
By Colleen. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item is public comments. So we have 10 minutes now for any item not on tonight's agenda. over which this board has jurisdiction. We'll take comments for 10 minutes, and if we go over 10 minutes, we'll continue later on in the agenda. Ms. Reel, would you like to start, apparently?
Linda Reel, Falls Road. I'm actually reading a statement from Dr. Steve Metz, who can't be here tonight. He's at a conference in Atlanta. I'd like to thank all board members for their service, and I would fervently hope that future meetings can show a spirit of problem solving, which must include listening to the concerns expressed by the residents of our town and giving significant weight to those concerns in the decision-making process. Dr. Metz.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Moran.
Sean Moran, and I apologize, I didn't realize I'd written on the back of Chief Noble's program, so it has nothing to do with the chief. So mine is a little reflective of Linda's. Many of us are thrilled and relieved to sit here at the last meeting of this board. I know that most of you, and probably all of you at times, really worked hard to make this a functional board, but this year it was a really dysfunctional board. So we look forward to the next board, to after March 7th, and some fresh blood on the board to be more inclusive of the town. And I think it's very important to the town, and this is one reason why. We have a lady who came here with us every 2 weeks, sometimes every week, who's lived in the town for over 58 years. Well, now she's dying. And her last wish was to get a ballot and vote so she could have her voice heard, which she felt many times it wasn't heard. So I just want to say that March 7th, we'd like to dedicate to Dorothy Sawyer, who sat with us and who probably won't live to March 7th, in taking her right to vote. All the young kids know how important that is. And to vote her conscience and vote for a change in this board. Thank you for listening.
Is there anyone else who would, we had let everyone speak? You've already spoken once, so is there anyone else who would like to speak? No one, so Ms. Reel, why don't you take a second time?
Linda Reel, Falls Road. This is me. It's difficult to be a board member. I've witnessed that firsthand this year, and I do thank each person here for your service to the town. I've attended the past 14 select board meetings, and let's be honest, it hasn't been that fun. I've witnessed a lot of discord and disrespect, but I've also met a lot of good people, people who have skills and knowledge that can help this town, people whose hearts are in the right place. That gives me hope. I look forward to moving in a new direction, a more kind direction, in an atmosphere of goodwill and respect. Thank you.
Okay. Our next item is hopefully one that will bring a lot of joy to people. It is consider appointing Rick Bissett as Shelburne's Poet Laureate. This is a program that the Select Board, after receiving our town manager's suggestion of going forward with this Poet Laureate program, there were some discussions, and frankly, some people were not in favor of it. But others embraced it. And we opened it up, and Rick Bissett was chosen as Shelburne's first Poet Laureate. His term is coming up soon, and so I wanted to let everybody know some of the things that he's done. Bring in some of the people with whom he has worked. I will tell you that this program has far exceeded our expectations. It has been a spectacular program. Rick Bissett, I feel like it's the Star Trek, has gone far beyond whatever that Star Trek thing is. Bum ba-dum, bum 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 bum. Whereas no man has gone before. He has been involved in what's known as poetry around town, going to 12 businesses in 12 months. He's had a committee with Fran Stoddard and VCAM. He's had several visits to Shelburne Community School to talk with grades 2 to 7 on being the poet laureate, the journey. He's appeared and spoken to the kids at the Renaissance School. He's done the same thing at the Waldorf School. He's been mentoring 4th and 5th graders at Shelburne Community School, 10 children, 1 time a month. This is the first year. He's been involved in Field of Dreams column once a month for the Shelburne News. He wrote a poem for the Firehouse. He was interviewed for the magazine My State, Vermont fall issue. He's worked with 12 to 13-year-old violinist from Charlotte, Jasmine. He's been involved in Love Your Library event. He's been involved with writing poems for Colleen Haig and Ruth Morrow. He's been involved with poetry reading in Waterbury Center for a 105-year-old lady. He's been involved in poetry and prayer at All Souls Church. Souls Church. I don't have my reading glasses on, sorry. He's been involved in an after-school writing project twice with 2 children. He's done poetry reading on the deck of the Ticonderoga at the Shelburne Museum. He's done poetry readings at the terraces, poetry readings at arbors. He's had a poetry event at the inn at Shelburne Farms with Jasmine playing the violin 2 times. He's had a poetry event of 2nd graders at Shelburne Community School. He's been involved in Stuck in Vermont with Eva Solberger with WCAX and 11 5th graders. He's been sending poetry, essays, and posters to Montpelier, Green Up Day. He's been involved in writing an anthology of local poems or compiling an anthology of local poems for children and adults at the library. He's been a judge at the Poetry Slam event at Shelburne Community School. And I'm sure there are other things that this man has done for our community. He has been absolutely spectacular. I cannot imagine someone who could have given more in this position. We're going to, thank you. That's fair. But there's more. There's more about Rick Bissett that you should know and what he's done for this community. We've asked a couple of the students with whom Rick has worked this year to come in. I met one of them, Anya, on the way in tonight. Rick, do you want to introduce these people, or how do you want to do it?
I'd like to come up and meet them at the mic.
Please, Rick, everybody, this is Rick Bissett, our poet laureate.
Wow. Wow. They have some things they've written that I have not seen. They've been practicing at the school. Jensa Bushy has been working with them. So this is a surprise to me, and I may need a Kleenex.
We have them right there.
But I'm going to let these guys and gals say what they've written. And then, I guess, Kevin, we have to do our legalities. But I really will let them speak right now.
Okay.
And I want to stand with them if I may.
Absolutely, Rick. And if you guys, if you would please tell us all your names and what grade you're in, that would be great. I think it's just down below.
This.
Oh, that you can hold it.
Yeah, this is okay. Who wants to go first? Jonas, say your name.
Okay. I'm Jonas Story, and I'm in 5th grade.
You're Jonas? What grade are you in, Jonas?
5th grade.
Okay, thanks.
If I could use a few words to describe Rick Bissett, I would use kind, brave, and hardworking. If you ask anybody in Shelburne if they know Rick Bissett, they would say, "Oh yeah, he's great." Some people know him as the guy who fills popcorn at Aubuchon's Hardware, and others know him as the town poet laureate. He helped me as a poet by telling me to speak from the heart and write whatever pops into your head.
Oh, Jonas, thank you.
Who wants to go next?
Who's next?
Come on, honey.
What's your name?
My name's Anya.
Anya, that's right. And how old are you? And what grade are you in?
I'm in 5th grade.
5th grade, me too.
The writing program that Rick Bissett runs is really fun, and he inspires young writers to write what they want to write about. Rick Bissett teaches young writers how to express feeling into writing. Also, sometimes writing can be boring, but in this program it is always fun. I've never been bored in this program, and I don't think anyone in the program has ever been bored because Rick has a kind and funny personality. The writing program is really fun and inspiring.
Oh, thank you, Anya. And who's our third person?
I'm Taryn, and I'm also in 5th grade.
Hi, Taryn.
I don't know where to begin when describing Rick. There are so many things I love about him. He is kind, funny, and one of the best poets I've ever met. Rick has been an amazing poet laureate, and he has not only read his wonderful poetry at countless events, but made an impact on many kids. Every Friday, Rick comes to SES and inspires kids to open up their hearts and put their feelings into poetry. Through this writing club, Rick has taught me to write what's in my heart and that all our voices matter. When Rick walks into a room, he is always smiling. No matter how bad of a day I'm having, he makes me forget all my frustration and just be present in the moment. Being with Rick makes me happy. I am so thankful I could have the experience of writing with Rick. I thank you, Rick, for all you've done for us.
Oh, Taryn.
Give it a hug. Thanks, Mom and Dads. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Oh.
Let me tell you a couple other stories that I've heard about Rick. My wife is one of Rick's groupies. She follows him around and goes to his events. She told me how Rick went before the 5th grade class just about 10 days ago, give or take. And the materials that these kids ended up writing through Rick's guidance, it was incredible. One of the questions I understand, Rick, please correct me if I have it wrong, was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And some of the responses were spectacular. One 5th grader said, "I want to be a better me." And another one said, "I want to be like my mom. She cares for me." So why don't I give everybody on the board a chance to say something before I need some Kleenex.
The only thing I can say is that Rick is his own award.
That's a great. All I can say is, Rick, every time I meet with you and talk with you, it's a joy.
I think like any naysayer over whether the town of Shelburne needs a poet laureate only needs to sit in this room to realize just how important you are to the community. And I wish that, like the town of Fresno, we could offer you a $2,000 a year stipend. And I frankly think our poet laureate is much better than the town of Fresno, so I'm really glad you write the things that you write.
I've been trying to suck up the Peters. Sorry, that was a joke.
So, Rick, I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to speak because it's a item on the agenda, but would you like to say something about the program and whatever you like?
I know we're on a time thing here. And I guess to do it legally, I guess Kevin's got to come up and it has to be brought before the board for your vote. But I want to thank the board at the library, at the Pearson Library. I want to thank the select board for believing in me, for giving me this opportunity. And I want to thank the kids. I never in a million years thought I had this in me. I wish my parents and my brother were alive to see this. But that being said, I thank you, Joe. Thank you for this program. I want to thank Betty Marcher, who always posts my things on the town website. It's just important. It's not just me. You've heard the saying, it takes a village. This is my village. Whether we're in disagreement or not, I live here. I love each and every one of you, means something to me. And I look forward to just going ahead and to serve you in the next 2 years and to promote writing. The children's work, the adults, we've started a new program that's Talk Poetry that will be held every couple of months now to bring people out, children out. And I think that's about it. I don't know if you have to make the legal appointment.
I don't think it officially, but I'd love to say a word.
Yes.
Kevin.
So,
Yes, I'll sit down. Thank you.
Library director.
Kevin Unrath, the library director. So, Rick, I learned the other day in your program that your second favorite poet after Uncle Joe was Robert Frost. And Robert Frost said, something there is that doesn't love a wall that wants it down. And I really think that you break down that wall between poetry, which is this thing a lot of people think is an academic practice, and a community. And that's wonderful. And so I'm happy to say that the board, myself and Joe unanimously recommend to the select board your reappointment for the next 2 years as poet laureate. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So, we're going to have a motion, and then I'm going to open it up in case anyone wants to speak.
I'll sit down.
You may have to get up again, Rick. I don't know. So, someone like to?
Move to
I'll be happy
reappoint
to
Ray.
move appointment of Rick Bissett,
That's fine.
who is the true voice of Shelburne, for a 2-year additional term with hopefully a 99-year extension.
And I will joyfully second it.
Moved by Jerry and seconded by Colleen. This is an agenda item. If anyone here would like to say anything, please just identify yourself.
I'm Sarah Tompkins, and I live over on Falls Road. And I would like to say thank you to him for the stuff in the Shelburne News and all the other joy that he's brought to this town. There's been so much conflict. It's nice to see someone bring joy, and if anybody does it, he does it.
Thank you. Just identify yourself, please. And I liked when you stood for
I was
him.
hoping everybody else would,
I
but
think
that's okay.
I'm trying to lead that.
My name's Kelly Story. I'm Jonan Story's mom. And I just really, Jonan never lets me speak in public. So he actually was like, Mom, you got to go talk. I'm like, don't worry, I'm planning on it. I just really wanted to thank Rick and to let everybody here know that as a parent, I think all parents hope for those moments that their kids will have in their life that will be life-changing for them. And you know, as a parent, that it just takes a few of those moments to inspire them to do something in their life that means something. And that this was a moment. This was his really probably his first moment. A really big moment was working with Rick. My husband and I have just been totally blown away. And you know, just to see how inspired Jonan has been to write, and also how proud of himself he's been. And, you know, we really cannot say enough. And, you know, to have a young boy like that, who's very athletic and likes to move a lot, not sit still very much, you think that he has this kind of a skill is going to take him well into his future academically. And so we really cannot thank you enough. We are just so grateful. And I think that you are just an incredibly special human being. And we're just so lucky in our town to have Rick and to have the town. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. I encourage anyone else who'd like to say something. Nora? This is my wife. Nora von Stage.
Nora von Stage, Ridgefield Road. I am married to one of the select board's members, but that has absolutely nothing to do with the reason that brings me here, which is to join the thanks and praise for our poet laureate. And this little story begins where I grew up in Elmhurst, Illinois, which also was once home to Carl Sandburg. So, attending Carl Sandburg Public School, I developed a really strong appreciation for the importance of the position of poet laureate, because in the hallway at the entrance to school, his photograph was hung right next to the photograph of the then current President of the United States. Pretty good evidence. But I never thought much about what it was that poet laureate did, other than write poetry. So when I saw notices for Rick's poetry get-togethers at various special places in Shelburne, I attended out of curiosity, and I discovered the most delightful gatherings of where people read their own poetry or recited favorite poems that other people wrote, and listened to live music, and ate cheese. That was a good part, too. And I discovered Rick's poetry and realized how fortunate we are that he so often looks to the town of Shelburne for his inspiration and writes about its people and its places and its history and events and its celebrations and its losses and tragedies and I think even its weather. And to me, and I think it's been voiced so well by others, his most significant contribution is his school program. You should see all the smiles and waves and high fives when Rick enters the classroom. Oh my goodness. And what Rick Bissett can do with a group of kids, blank pieces of paper, and a snowflake or a tree or a bird or the sound of rustling leaves is truly remarkable. I am awed by the resulting deep thought and expression, as we've heard tonight. What a joy and what a gift. And my thanks to Rick, too. Thanks to Candy for serving as his muse. Thanks to Joe and the people at the library for bringing this idea to the select board. Thanks to the select board for taking the initiative to enact, or I don't know if it's an act, to bring it to fruition. And I enthusiastically and sincerely hope that you invite Rick, our active, engaged, generous, kind poet laureate, to serve another term. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, I do want to point out that, as Nora mentioned, Rick is blessed by having Candy at his side, and I know Candy has done so much to assist Rick in this endeavor. So, has everyone had an opportunity to speak? Oh, Gail?
Being in the schools with Rick or having my kids do this, but I have had the benefit of hearing Rick read his poetry at the winery and saw what his passion was about that. And seeing that passion come now after this work with the kids, I think is just absolutely phenomenal. And I get as inspired every time I run into Rick and Albichon and hear the passion that he speaks with. And I'd just like everybody to stand up and say thanks, Rick, and thanks to the select board for giving him this chance.
Yes. We will vote right now. All in favor? Aye. Everybody gets to vote. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Very much. Thank you.
This is what our meetings were like for 2 years. All right, item number 6. Review the annual audit with the town auditors.
And he promised to read it like a poem too, right?
That's a tough act to follow.
That's pretty.
I've done a lot of board meetings, but going after that is going to be the most difficult assignment I've ever had.
If you could please identify yourself for
Sure,
everybody.
yeah.
We know you.
My name is Rick Brigham. I'm with Sullivan Powers Company. I've been a partner there for about 20 years. This is, I believe, our 3rd year doing the audit for the town of Shelburne. So I'm here to present the audit report to the board. I know you've had the audit report and probably have a few questions. I think what I'm planning to do is just go through a quick few comments of general things that I need to say to the board as far as communications that I have to do. And then I'll just flip through the audit report relatively quickly. There's a lot there. Obviously, it's 80 pages, a lot of documentation, a lot of information. But I want to just kind of give you the highlights. Then I'll let you ask any questions that you have, and we can close out.
Sorry, I just want to point out the full audit is available on our website.
Thanks.
So as part of our communications, one of the things we like to point out, we send audit committee letters to the board, basically saying we had no difficulties in performing the audit. We had no disagreements with management in performing the audit. Those are required communications that we are supposed to make in writing, but I also like to make them at the board meeting just to make sure that everybody's clear with that. So looking at the audit report itself, if we go to pages 1 through 3, this is a big document, the audit report. This is all I'm charged with. This is all I'm charged with is these 3 pages. I walked in and Josh said, he was very generous and said what a great report it was, and he got a lot of information out of it. Well, a lot of that goes obviously to Peter and his staff because we helped them put that audit report together. But what goes into that audit report during the year is all but based on, the work of the board, the work of Peter, the work of the staff here, town clerk, and all the people in the communication required to get all the controls, policies, and procedures to do all the work of tax billing, collections, and all that stuff. So all my simple charges is to make sure these statements are fairly stated. And so we have 3 choices when we do an audit opinion. You have a adverse opinion, which says that the financial statements aren't fairly stated. You have a qualified opinion that says they are, but something's wrong. Or you have an unqualified opinion. Once again, the town has achieved an unqualified opinion and should be very proud of that. A lot of the places I go, there's certain things that have to be fixed or adjusted, and they're working on it, but you guys have achieved that this year and should be very proud of that. The next section in the report, which I always love to point out, if you look at pages 4 through 12, it's the management's discussion and analysis. This is prepared by Peter and Joe as kind of a user-friendly guide to reading the financial statements and understanding them. If you really want to understand the financial statements in a more clear, basic way, read through this document. This is really clear and concise, summarized, kind of gives you the simplistic of what happened during the year, where the fund balances are, and where things sit at the end of the year, and things looking forward as well. So again, if you're digging into the audit report and really want to get a good understanding of it, it's a real good document to look at. Again, pages 4 through 12. If I look at page 13, this is what we call the government-wide financial statements. This is the balance sheet of the government-wide financials. This is where, if you combine all your funds, all your assets for all your governmental activities and business activities, at June 30, 2017, this is where your balance sheet stood. So looking down here, you kind of get all your assets up top, your liabilities in the middle, and your net position, or what would be called fund balance, down below. I don't spend a lot of time on this because most towns are really focused on the general fund and what the fund balance of the general fund is. This kind of takes all the fixed assets, all the roads, all the debt, and puts it all in there. So there's a lot of things in there, but how it's utilized, it's not utilized much for what you do on a day-to-day operations or even looking at results. But it is required to be in the audit report, so I wanted to point it out, but I didn't want to spend too much time on that. Looking at page 15, again, this is the balance sheet for the general fund. So if you're looking at this is a snapshot in time, June 30, 2017. This is where all your assets and liabilities stood. The things I wanted to kind of point out on this was, if you look at your unassigned fund balance of the general fund, it's $557,569. That's roughly about 8% of your budget. That's not bad, although GFOA usually recommends, upwards of 20%, which might be a little high for Vermont. But so it's a healthy fund balance, but it certainly could be higher because of cash flow needs and stuff like that. You want to have a healthy fund balance. Last year was about 555,000. So from last year to this year, it's almost exactly the same. Looking at the next page, 16, that basically is showing you how the general fund made its money, all the revenues, expenses to come to the net change in fund balance, which was $83,463. And again, kind of gives you the details of all the different revenues and expenses that came into the year. If we go to page 18, these are your enterprise funds. The only thing I wanted to point out, again, if I'm looking at page 18, this is your balance sheet as of June 30, 17. The water fund has an unrestricted deficit, $20,551. Last year, I believe it was $30,000. So obviously, the water fund fund balance probably needs to be evaluated, and I'm sure that's being looked at with rates and going forward. But it's certainly something to, I needed to point out that, having it negative or close to negative, you want to start looking at ways to get that a little bit more healthy. Sewer fund balance looked fine. That was sitting at $1,408,000 unrestricted. So that was quite healthy. Again, it was just the water fund that probably needs to be looked at. Pages 21 through 48. Again, once you've looked at the MD&A of the audit report, if you're looking to fine tune and get into more details of our cash balances, our investment balances, what notes we have, what interest rates, all the details of that are in these notes here. So they all will, you'll take all the cash, that'll agree back to the cash in the balance sheets, but it'll give you a lot more detail. What's collateralized, what's secured, stuff like that, and it'll tell what investments you have for any of the investments that are in the town. So if you're looking for details of that kind of stuff, the notes of the financial statements are there to provide that for you. If I look at pages 49 through 57, I'm not going to get much into this because you guys are probably looking at this every single week. This is your budget actual. This is what's telling you what you're getting from financial reporting on a regular basis to kind of tell you how things are going, how revenues are compared to budget, how expenses are compared to budget. This is where we stood as of June 30, 17. Obviously, That's, 8 months ago. So you're at a different place now, but certainly historically, this could provide some good information. In the back, pages 60 through 67, those are all the other funds other than the general fund. All your reappraisal funds, all your special revenue, your special capital projects, those are all back there. They're all combined, and we have the same kind of information. You're showing the balance sheets for each of those funds and showing the income statements for each of those funds. There was nothing that stuck out to me. I think there was a couple funds in there that were negative, but there was already plans that are already in place in the footnotes for how those negatives will be made up and clearly outlined. And that's one of the things we always like to recommend, if there's any negatives, that the footnotes dictate how those will be made up. And they weren't big negatives anyway. So, but I wanted to at least point that out. And at the very end, if we look at pages 70 through 76, this is our internal control letter. As we go through our audit, we're not just looking at the numbers and trying to verify where you are financial position-wise, but as we find things in the controls or things that could be improved. One of our charges is if we find something that could be a material weakness or significant deficiency, doesn't mean it necessarily is a big problem, but it's something that could be, we have to report it. So in here we have a couple things related to segregation of duties, related to bank reconciliations for a few of the, I think there's a bunch of people that were actually doing the accounts, but what we're trying to do is get somebody who wasn't a check signer to make sure. So it's just clarity of making sure the right people are doing the right jobs. Again, the same kind of thing with transfers of funds, just making sure that there's two people doing when you're doing bank transfers. And so we made those recommendations back there. Peter's provided his responses to that. They seemed good to us as far as you guys going forward and correcting those issues. There was a couple things with reconciling revenues in the recreation to the GL and approving of journal entries. Again, not huge deals, but things we wanted to point out, and Peter's already provided us responses to those, and those are included in the reports. We also issue a management letter. I'm not going to get much into that today because it's going to repeat a lot of those same findings we talked about. There's going to be other things because when we do an audit, if there's anything that we find, we're going to mention it. And it goes into that category called other recommendations. It's not required to even be reported, but we're figuring we're here. We're going to tell you everything we think, everything that we see other places doing. So we do report those in the management letter. People might look at it as a big negative criticism, but they're not. They're just more pointing out different things that you can do differently. And so those are in there for you to review as well. That's pretty much all I had. I don't know if you guys had specific questions of me.
Does anyone on the board have any questions for Rick? But one thing I do want to mention, and I think everyone on the board, and frankly, everyone who knows Peter will join us, we have an extraordinary finance director here.
Absolutely.
He has been with us for a long time. And he's a superstar, so
I get a lot of late night emails from Peter, so I know what the hours he's putting in here.
I think everyone who knows Peter, when we drive past the building at 11 o'clock, we all look to see if his light's still on it.
Absolutely.
And I'd just like to add, as you said, the responsiveness of this. And if I remember from last year's audit report, there were some issues that were brought up, and they're not in this year's issues. And that's to Peter's credit that he followed up, and they're not there anymore.
Right, exactly.
So I think that's a really, so if anybody, just to second the idea that if there's a recommendation made, Peter will follow up on it.
Yeah. And I know a lot of the things that are in there and are things that Peter and I have talked about and we're working towards and fixing. And, I know we'd love to have more staff. I know that's the big thing, but I know budgets are tight. But but certainly seeing the size town you are, and I've had conversations with Joe and certain people that, I certainly would love to see more resources in that department, but I know they do a lot with what they've got, that's for sure.
So, anyone else have anything?
Candy's here. She's in that department.
Yeah, Candy.
So, deserves a lot of
Candy. Too.
He helps so many people, not just in our department, but throughout the whole town offices.
Let me tell you something about Peter since we're on it. Not only does he do the financial work, when our library was leaking a couple of years ago, it was Peter Frankenberg who went over there to help clean up the wetness and to save our books, to save our shelves. Peter never hesitates to help in any way he can. So it's not surprising to me that you get the response you do from Peter. He just happens to be great with math. So Rick, it's nice to hear that we have an unqualified audit opinion, that we have a healthy fund balance, and that our sewer fund, which is really important, a separate fund, is quite healthy. The water fund balance, as you said, is slightly negative. We have changed our allocation on our water tower this year to help address that. So I think we are taking steps going forward to address everything we can based on the recommendations we receive from staff.
Excellent. And anything you need from us to go forward, we're here for you, so just let us know.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or anything? All right, thank you very much, Rick.
Peter.
Oh, Peter, I'm sorry.
I answered enough of your questions?
I think, and thanks to Rick and his staff, they're really good to work with. Every year we learn more from them, and it's a really good relationship that we have. I'm very happy with that, and this is our third year with you, and hopefully you'll be back again. So thank you for that. And again, the staff, Rick kind of brushed over it, but we did end up the year with a positive increase in our fund balance, and that was a challenge. But I would like to recognize our department heads who basically looked at their budgets, cut back where they could, and it wasn't because we had fluff that we could, forego. Particularly Paul Goodrich and the highway department, where the big dollars are, put off projects. The police department had more revenues with the additional agencies they're dispatching for. So we really pulled together. I'm really appreciative of the efforts our departments have done to bring us in a positive fund balance with some challenges we obviously had in some other areas. So I think a lot of credit goes to them as well. They really pitched in and helped us get to a really positive end for the year. So thanks.
Thanks, Peter. All right. That's that item. So let's turn to our...
I just want to remind, if there are questions in the future from the public or from the board, the audit is available online, and certainly shoot either me or Peter any questions that come about, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can.
Thank you. Thanks again, Rick. Item 7, discuss and consider adopting a new Town of Shelburne personnel policy. This is a policy, not an ordinance, and it has been before us, well, I don't know how many times, but many times.
For some time.
And we're hoping that we're able to go forward. Joe, why don't I turn it over to you?
Yeah, it's been a heavy lift by staff. I definitely want to give a shout out to Ann Janda, who's put the most work in. We started, this was one of the priorities that the select board put on staff at your retreat last year. As soon as the fiscal year turned on July 1st, we basically started going at it. And, to do a complete overhaul of a document that's 30 years old and was done, I think, on a typewriter and wasn't something that we could just easily edit, was a big effort from, just a kind of pragmatic point of view, and all the laws and regulations have changed quite a bit in 30 years. So I think we have a document that is certainly brings us up to date. I'm very happy and proud of the complete staff effort that was put into this. Everyone on staff had opportunity to have their feedback known and heard, and changes were made. I also want to introduce Kathy Brooks, who is here. I've been talking to her some. She is certainly much more qualified in the world of HR and personnel policies than I am. And I did go over the policy with her, made a few kind of, I don't want to say minor edits, but some changes that she thought were appropriate. And I think it might be helpful for the board to hear from Kathy. You know, Shelburne, you know, while we're larger than a lot of municipalities in Vermont, we still don't have a dedicated HR professional. We kind of do it hodgepodge, a number of us, but it's not a position that we have in town. And so it's nice to be able to have someone in the community like Kathy who was willing to donate her time and her ability to help us with this. So I don't know if you wanted to...
Just let me give people a little more understanding of Kathy. Kathy has volunteered to help us on this project. She has an extensive background in human resources. She served as the head of human resources for Green Mountain Coffee, which of course became Keurig. She has gone on to become head of human resources at that mountain up north that's not Killington, Sugarbush. And she is currently at Champlain Oil. And she has been doing this for more than a couple weeks. And she is a highly, highly respected professional in this field. So she was nice enough to have some conversations with Joe to help us move along in this area. And Kathy, I can't thank you enough. And so why don't you come on up and tell us what you think. Kathy Brooks, everyone.
Thank you. Oh, oops, I just broke the mic. One of the joys of being short. As I said, I spent, quite a amount of time. I think the policy, the finished product is very good. In fact, it's probably more comprehensive than most of them that I've seen. I did want to bring up one point for discussion, and that just concerns, I noticed throughout the policies several times, there's discussions about the NLRB and the National Relations, Labor Board Relations Act. And I'm wondering if you might want to consider not using some of that in it. And to begin with, the Act specifically excludes employees that are federal, state, or local government. So I don't think, it's not even applicable because the law excludes anybody in that group. And in December 14th of 2017, which was just a few months ago, they actually did a total revision of their laws. Laws is the wrong word, the Act. And for all of you in the audience, the Labor Relations Act deals with employees' rights to unionize, collective bargain, and not even formal unionization, the right in a workplace to get together, to band together, to negotiate, for lack of a better word, for certain things. December 14th of last year, they actually revised and had some new standards that they put in place. And what those standards did was actually significantly help the employer side of things. Before, there were some standards that, were at this level, and now they've really revised that. And one of the big changes, and it happened to be with Boeing. Boeing took one of the acts into our arbitration, and Boeing actually prevailed, and they have now said that Boeing has the right to prohibit cameras and things like that in the workplace because of fear of security and privacy and things like that. So I guess I would just ask you as a board maybe to think about first that because your employees are not included in the Act, to think about, do you really want the verbiage in your policy? I realize there are some bargaining units, and we do specifically have a place in the policy that says if there's, places where the two intersect, that if they're under a bargaining unit, the bargaining unit prevails. And I know you do have a couple unions, the police and the wastewater and some of the, one other department. So that's my only thing I think that I want to say to you is I don't think you need to put things in there that don't need to be in there. And to me, that's sort of doesn't need to be there. And like I said, December 14th, they did say that you don't have, you have the right to not allow people to videotape things. Again, and I would say that your town is kind of like that because you have citizens' information in there, you have employment information in there. So just to think about that. And the other thing that we just did some tweaking on was the harassment policy and the sexual harassment policy, because obviously those are very important public issues that are coming up. And we want to make sure that as a town, we have that all covered. And one of the things that Joe and I talked about is it goes beyond harassment. We really want to create a respectful workplace environment. And that's one of the things that, harassment is the law, sexual harassment is the law that goes with it. But we want to work together as a team, with the board, with the managers to create a respectful workplace. And then you don't have some of those issues down the road. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I'm very glad you brought up that the NLRB standards are not applicable to municipalities. In fact, it says it, so I think on they're excluded. Yeah, it says so on the front, I think it's the front page of their website. Also, I'm glad you brought up the changes that happened in December. There were 2 cases that came down, I think February 2nd, and one that came down yesterday that also supported that from the NLRB. So thank you for your comments. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to say about this? Or Joe, do you have anything else for lead-in?
No, I want to thank again Kathy for looking at it. We had a consultant from VLCT who looked at it. Our town attorney has looked at it. We had a committee of myself, Peter, Ann, and Susan Canizero kind of go through it. Then everyone on staff was able to have their feedback put in here. And then since about Thanksgiving time, it's been before the board. So, I feel like we did go through a really comprehensive process. It's been a great team effort, and I feel, it's a policy. I'm sure we'll go through and have updates from time to time. Actually, we wrote in here, one of the last minute changes was to make sure that every year before June 30th, that the manager would present it again to the board to make sure that there's kind of an annual review of the policies as we go forward. And I think that makes a lot of sense, that's kind of spelled out. It's going to happen on an annual basis, that at least that the board's going to kind of look at this again.
Thanks for bringing that up. And also, so everyone understands, this is a policy. And even with that addition of it being reviewed once a year, it doesn't prohibit the policy being amended at any time, because some things are going to come up. Changes might be in order, and because it's a policy, we don't have to go through the same ordinance structure where you have to have a first reading and a second reading followed by a public hearing with certain notice provisions and certain timeframes in between each of those meetings and hearings. This is a policy. It can be changed very easily as we go forward. And clearly, I mean, the old one was 30 years old, so it was time to do something. So, Jerry, got anything, or Josh and Colleen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just a quick question. As far as the wording with regards to the federal, state, and local government exclusion, was that wording anywhere in this policy still?
I think there was a couple references to it in the document. In the final document, yes.
Joe, are they still in there?
And I guess I'm recommending that they're not bad, they don't need to be there. They're extraneous because that group is not eligible to be covered under the NLRB.
Yeah, there may be a few references to it, and I'm still, I guess, feel decent about the document. Josh had a number of comments that we went through as a staff. Jerry was there, and a number of Josh's comments I thought were quite helpful and made the policy a little bit more robust. So we worked into the document the ones that we found useful. Certainly, maybe they're not as many as Josh had hoped or had desired, but a number of them were very helpful for the document, and we did think that they deserve to be in here. And
Great. It's fine. Jerry and Josh?
Yeah, I don't at all want to discount the amount of effort that's been put in this for everyone, but as I've communicated, I was somewhat disappointed that we had discussed at the last select board meeting that we would go through the policy again and try to answer some of the questions that still remained, and that was not able to occur. So I still do have some questions about the policy, but I think given that the one we've been working with is 30 years old, that if there is enough of a motivation to get this in place, I'm not sure I'm prepared to agree with everything that's in here, but I think it should move forward with the understanding that, for the record, that we would revisit it as even on a more recent schedule, maybe in the near future, that we could address some of these issues.
Kathy, wait 1 second. Yeah.
I would urge you to treat it as a living document, because the laws change. For example, last year they put in the part-time employee vacation or sick pay requirement, and they changed the minimum wage. Employment law changes like 3 or 4 times a year, and there's all new laws regarding to benefits, and they're just about, they're all about to change. So I would think of it as a living document, one that you plan on having to need to be updated on a regular basis, because you have to, because the face of employment changes and the laws change and the market changes, and so you want your document to change as that. So it's not a static, and I'll hate you all if it's in the place for the next 30 years. There needs to be changes every year.
So move to adopt the new Town of Shelburne personnel policy as presented.
Moved by Colleen. Someone want to second? Of course, we'll have discussion.
Sure, I'll second.
Seconded by Jerry, and open it up for discussion. Please go ahead.
I just got a quick comment, mostly to say that this is a very important night for Shelburne, because we are about to adopt a policy that replaces one that's 30 years old and badly out of date, and has exposed this town to some considerable liabilities over a period of time that are daunting. So with that said, on balance, I think that need, expressing some great appreciation for the effort that Josh has made, for you, Kathy, coming and helping us as much as you have, for meetings that I can recall in which Joe and Susan and Ann spent up to 2 hours at a time going through suggestions. Some of us made line by line. It feels like, on balance, we've scrubbed this pretty well and can no longer go a day without putting in place protections that the town should have. So I appreciate and thank all the effort in preparation. It's a stupendous accomplishment to put this in front of us tonight and for us to approve it.
Thank you, Jerry. Does anyone here have any comments? Hearing none, and with great thanks, let's just thank her. She really went out of her way to help us. Kathy Brooks, she really went out of her way to help us. I'd like to point out that even your husband clapped. All right, we have a motion by Colleen, seconded by Jerry, to approve the personnel policy as presented. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I will abstain.
The motion passes. All right, we thank you again. We're on to item number 9, which is item number 8. Oh God, I love it when you're here, Hope.
Gail?
She said
it. Hi, Sarah. Consider adopting amendments to the tree policy and adopting the memorial tree policy as requested by the Tree Advisory Committee. I'll let you know that we first started with the tree policy early in my tenure on this board. It's probably like 8 years ago or something like that. And it wasn't easy. There were a lot of people on the board who were very much against it. And in fact, the then town manager was, I believe, against it. And we had state people come. We had some great arborists come, and we were able to pass it. But it's time to have some amendments. So am I turning this over to you, Hope, now?
Actually,
Gail? There she is. I didn't even see you back there, Gail.
This is Gail Henderson King, Chair of the Shelburne Tree Advisory Committee.
Hi, Gail.
Hello. I don't normally make this many appearances before the select board in 1 month, but here I am again. So the good news is, when I was here last, we were talking about the Tree City USA application that did get it submitted in on time. We will know before the Arbor Day celebration, and if we are selected and approved for this, there'll be some state celebration that we'll participate in. So keep your fingers crossed. But as a result of putting that application in, I realized that I could not find the signed copies of these two documents that were before the select board back in May of 2014. So we had a tree policy that was approved back in September of 2010. When the Tree Advisory Committee started in 2013, we did make some minor tweaks to the tree policy. We came forward to the select board. I think Gary was the only one that's here that was on the select board at the time to get that readopted. It was, I can swear, I was at the meeting, it was readopted. It was never, for whatever reasons, there's no signed copy of it. There's no signed or recorded minutes of that meeting. So I am back here tonight with these two documents that were supposedly approved back in 2014 to please have you adopt them officially tonight and sign them so we can get them filed. So, like I said, the tree policy was a document that was done back in 2014. We just added some amendments. You should have a marked up copy of it, red line showing minor amendments that we made to it. And actually, Joe and I talked today and made a few tweaks to that document that you should have in the final version. But that document is pretty straightforward. The Memorial Tree Fund policy, that was a fund that we created back in, well, that's not, I'm sorry, it's a Memorial Tree policy. It's not the fund. We decided not to do the fund. Excuse me, I'm getting all messed up here.
I'm the co-vice secretary, Gail here.
Thank you.
Vice Secretary.
It's the Memorial Tree policy. We decided not to set up a separate Memorial Tree fund. We have one tree fund that Memorial Tree revenue goes into, but we did create this Memorial Tree policy. Since this has been unadopted or in place, but not in place, we have had 2 memorial trees planted in the town several years ago. So we just would like to have both of these documents officially.
And this time when they're signed, they will go up on the website immediately. So this, whatever happens, I don't know what happened in 2010. In 2014, that was right when Paul, Boney, and I transitioned. So there may have, I don't remember exactly what happened there.
Agent committee.
Could be a secret agent.
Yeah.
So compared
They
to
exist somewhere, but not here. So.
So sorry, just this afternoon compared to I'm looking at the tree policy now because maybe that's the one you can do first here. Just made a one, I think, minor change under authority. I just wrote as a final sentence because this has been our stated practice. This isn't a one I have here that I just did it at 4 o'clock with. It's different. I don't know.
It's basically the same documents, the tree policy document that I sent to you.
Yeah.
Joe has put it into the
I just
policy
put into a
format.
form that we use typically, and then I added the sentence under authority because this is a practice that this select board we've done, is that it is recommended that the tree warden should be a member of the tree advisory committee, to make that clear in the policy, because that's something that we've done. Right. So that was the very minor edit I made at 4 o'clock with Gail compared to the one that you have in front of you for the tree policy.
All right. Sounds reasonable. Anyone have any comments? Again, this is an example of a policy and how easy it is for a board to adopt or change a policy versus an ordinance.
Yeah. So I want to preface this by saying how supportive of I am of the whole policy and of trees in general. I mean, I've gone through the first detectors program, and I couldn't be more in favor of trees. However, on the select board, I've got to wear another hat, and that's sort of looking out for the public's pocket. And this would not at all, as Gary says, this is a policy. And so I would just urge you to, if you could review section 9, which is tree removal on private property. I don't know if you know, Vermont is sort of breathlessly waiting for the introduction of invasive species. Today, there was an announcement that the first report of emerald tree borer was made in Vermont. We've got the woody adelgid, which attacks hemlocks, which is potential. I have some concern that under item 9, if these invasives do appear in our area and there is a threat and these trees need to be removed, as it's stated, as diseased, then the property owner is responsible for the payment. And so if someone has X number of trees which are infected, which needs to be removed at $1,000, let's say a tree, that can be significant. So I don't have an answer to the problem, but I would just ask if you could review this and sort of figure out what that means potentially.
Well, a lot of communities throughout the country have dealt with the emerald ash borer and the consequences that it's having in many, many communities. And we did talk to a couple of people several years ago about creating a separate tree preparedness plan for dealing with emerald ash borer, because it is a huge cost. It's not a cost that we are going to expect anybody to handle on their own. Nonetheless, Shelburne residents, it's going to have to be a statewide approach and a townwide approach to do that. We've kind of put it off because it hasn't been here, but we will consider looking at that again and try to figure out some guidance for how to move forward. But this policy here is not really intended to handle that. That's kind of a separate, huge issue.
And Josh certainly brings up a good point. I mean, this is a interesting part of the policy. We did, Josh, I'm sorry, I don't remember if it was the first summer that you got on the board or if it was the summer previous, but we did send a letter to someone citing this, and it did encourage them to remove a tree that was potentially going to damage either their neighbor's house or certainly could have caused some bodily harm if it didn't go well. So, but it's a good point that Section 9 there is something to look at and to continue to be mindful of.
Right, and Joe and I talked about this afternoon and said this is probably something that our committee can look into a little bit further with the state and try to figure out some direction of how to deal with this. So,
Thank you, Gail.
sure.
So, someone like to make a motion approving the tree policy as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Jerry.
Second.
Seconded by Colleen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. What do you got next for us, Gail?
Just the memorial tree policy.
I don't know if we have that.
Mine is behind the, it's in the back of
It's
this.
in there. It's under that, part of that memo.
Part of the memo.
It's just a separate,
Oh, I got it. Okay. All right.
Yep.
so again, this is just outline for the program. Annually, we put together a document explaining the program and what the different options are and how it works. But this is the kind of the policy that puts this into place to be able to have the memorial tree program.
Yeah, I'm very glad we started that. It's nice.
I think
been great,
and you said, we have 2 memorial trees.
We do.
We have
We have-
utilized this, so.
Right, we have one at Davis Park, and then we have one at the town beach. So,
I'm sorry, and then at 4 o'clock this afternoon with Gail, I did make one edit relative to the policy that's in front of you. It's on section 1 under general information, 1.0. Edited the first sentence to read as follows. Are you at the first page, 1.0?
Yep.
The Town of Shelburne Memorial Tree Policy will be administered and coordinated by the tree warden as an agent of the Tree Advisory Committee, because that is in fact the way it has played out in the 2 times that we've used this policy.
Great.
Okay.
Good with that? Everybody good with that? Yep. All right, someone like to make a motion to approve the Town of Shelburne Memorial Tree Policy as presented with that one change? So moved by Colleen, seconded by Jerry. Any discussion by anyone? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you
Gail,
very much.
thank you.
Please sign it before you leave and
Wait.
give it back to Joe.
Yeah, well, it'll be on the
All I
website
ask.
tomorrow, this time.
And thank you all
Thank
for
you.
your support of our committee and the trees. and
Thank
the
you
work
for
there in
everything you
Shelburne.
guys have done. Thank you, Hope.
You and your committee do.
Thank you.
All right, our next item, which I understand has been vetted, is consider approving a wastewater allocation request for Village Wine and Coffee. Joe, it's been vetted, right?
It's been vetted. Kevin has paid his fee, so I have no problem recommending that the select board approve the request for an additional, what is the additional here? 260 gallons per day of wastewater allocation to Village Wine and Coffee.
Okay, so approve a wastewater allocation request for additional 260 gallons per day for Village Wine and Coffee.
Second.
Moved by Colleen, seconded by Jerry. Any further discussion? Anyone? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. Joe, here's the memorial tree policy.
It is
We
signed.
have both of them signed, ready to go up. Next, item number 10, consider approving liquor license renewal request. This is a quasi-judicial matter, so I ask everyone on this board, does anyone have any conflicts of interest, anything they'd like to disclose, or do they want to recuse themselves or anything on any of these applications? No one? Okay. Joe, why don't you give us a quick rundown on...
Okay, so in the email in your packet contains the requested licenses. All of these have been, they've all paid and they have been vetted by our police department. There are no known issues, so I have no reason to recommend to the board anything other than approval. So there are 3 requests for a first-class license. Those are Bark Eaters, Rustic Root, and Village Wine and Coffee. Then there are 5 for a second class: Jiffy Mart, Route 7 Liquor and Deli, Shelburne Grocery, Spillane Service Center, and Village Wine and Coffee. And then 2 outside consumption permits, 1 for Bark Eaters and 1 for Rustic Roots. I think it might be easier or cleaner to break it up into 3 motions, or well, actually, however you guys want to do it, it's fine. But they're all ready to be approved.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the first-class liquor license applications for Bark Eaters, Rustic Roots, and Village Wine and Coffee.
So moved.
Moved by Jerry, seconded by Colleen. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Entertain a motion to approve the second-class liquor license applications for Jiffy Mart, Route 7 Liquor and Deli, Shelburne Grocery, Spillane Service Center, and Village Wine and Coffee.
So moved.
Moved by Jerry, again, half a second in front of Colleen. Is that a second? Seconded by Colleen. Any discussion by anyone? No? All in favor? Aye. Entertain a motion to approve the outside consumption liquor application license for Bark Eaters and Rustic Roots.
So moved.
Moved by Jerry, seconded by Colleen. Any discussion? Anyone? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So there's going to be a lot of things for us to sign.
I'll
So
probably have you sign at the end of the meeting before you leave, but you can't leave without signing these.
All right, fair. All right, item number 11, town meeting preparations, review and discuss town meeting warning articles. Obviously, a lot of people have already voted. I assume most everyone has seen these articles, ballot questions. Joe, do you have anything like
No,
to
I
say?
just want to make sure that the board is comfortable. I keep forgetting that town meeting is only a week away. I feel like I have a presentation that I should probably start putting together for that, but I just want to make sure that we're coordinated and we know what we're doing, I suppose.
No, I think we're all set. Everybody knows these things. You and I will get together as we always do.
Yeah, I have a phone call with Tom Little to make sure that it's clear. We'll put a budget presentation together, kind of similar to what I've done in the past, but obviously with the updated figures. That should be that.
That's it. Anyone have anything? Hearing nothing, anyone have any comments about this? Yes?
Sean Moran. There was discussion, and I guess it's getting too late, about instructing the town, not too late tonight, but too late before the town meeting, on the 911 issue.
Yep.
Did we just don't have the time?
Well,
I mean,
my month
you have
got
a
a little,
very
my month got a little busy.
Yeah, I know. You had a baby.
And
oh, come on.
you
She
know,
had the baby. Come on.
I know. So, you know, I did try to give a presentation of sorts after the candidates forum. I know that it wasn't heavily attended. There is quite a bit of information available on this regional planning's website.
Yeah.
Again, I want to be clear in case there's any misunderstanding of what my position is. I've been the appointed select board representative to the Joint Survey Committee for close to 2 years now. I've brought back any recommendation that this board has made to that committee, and any of those recommendations were incorporated actually into the agreement. I am not, you know, I don't want it to be confused that I'm not in favor of regional dispatch or not. I have made it clear that I think it makes more sense than not to have a seat at the table in the governing body at this point, but that is a much different question than saying that there's a support to joining it as a paying member.
Your presentation was great and very informative for those of us who were there, and so is Josh's. It's just a lot of the community has no idea what they're voting on, sadly. So it's not a criticism, and I know time gets, I just wonder if that had gone by the wayside.
Well, we'll try to do something on Monday night and give some information and give as much information as possible on Front Porch Forum or what have you. I know shelburneS is going to write another article for Thursday.
Great.
There's always a discussion on every ballot item at town meeting.
At town meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
always.
Great. Thank you.
I just want to follow up on one of Joe's comments. I mean, because has been discussed, a lot that, this whole concept of seat at the table, and I think everybody should recognize that seat at the table, that there potentially are 7 seats at the table, and Shelburne would be one, and essentially it's the smallest community. And once we're at that table, all the decisions are made by majority vote. So there are many opportunities for larger interests to sway this. And so there's a lot of questions that about what a lot of this has been talked about as a 2-step process, that voters would vote and then the select board would vote. But once we're involved in the process, there are potential, at least Joe, I can ask you, can you guarantee that there are no monetary obligations past this point until we sign an MOU? That's one of the big questions. Once we're in the club, so to speak, there is potential for significant monetary obligations and potentially monetary obligations if we decide not to continue. So I think those things should be recognized.
Okay.
I can answer that.
Sure, go ahead.
At this point, there's absolutely no monetary obligation by the town if a vote is a yes.
Thank you, Joe. All right, so does anyone else have any other comments about this item? If not, we'll move on to item number 12, Select Board Comments. Josh?
Just briefly, I mean, I obviously, as some comments were made earlier, I comment on the end of the tenure of this select board, and the next meeting, there'll be at least one new member and different officers, and I look forward to moving forward with that select board in a towards dealing with the challenges that the town will face, and hopefully that all the people that have been coming to meetings in the past will continue, and I hope there will be many more opportunities for public input in the future. So thanks.
Yeah, I had a thought. Town meeting is a celebration of ourselves, and it doesn't quite have the significance of January 1 or even maybe July 1, but it's an opportunity to think about the contributions a lot of people have made to Shelburne over the past year in committees and boards and commissions, in town staff, and how fortunate we are. We've called attention all night, basically, to that kind of expert help and commitment, and how very fortunate we are when we approach this town meeting to think about the numbers of us who help make Shelburne what it is.
Thank you, Jerry. Colleen, do you have anything you'd like to?
Well, just that, I've been on the board now for almost 4 years, and all 4 of them have been with you on the board, and with you as chair for all of them, right? Or 3 of them, all of them, and regardless of whether we disagree with each other or other people disagree with any member of the board, I just want to recognize the fact that you've given a lot of time to the town, and just thank you. It's a lot of time and a lot of time away from our families, and Nora has, come to many of these meetings to support you, and when she's not here, that means she's home and you're here. So just thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. It's my last regular meeting, and I thought about responding to the intense personal attacks that have occurred in town over the last year or so, and I have decided not to do that. So, town manager's report.
Real briefly, 2 employees are moving on. Robbie LeBeau, who is a member of our highway department for many, many years, has gone to work for another organization. So he's left us as of Friday, and so we're going to work on replacing that position. I guess thankfully it hasn't been too much snow lately, because that's really a position that we're going to need to fill soon. And then I can't remember if I reported this before or not, but Kate Mitchell, who's been our DRB coordinator for at least 3 years now, will be ending her tenure here at the end of March. She's going to go on to graduate school somewhere. She's done a tremendous job. She's a young person, and I think this was her first real professional position, and she's just knocked it out of the park. I think she added a lot of, I see Mary nodding in the back as chair of the DRB for that time. She's just been a tremendous asset, both in her personality and the way that she's conducted herself in the town offices, and I think that she's given the DRB excellent service. So we'll miss her tremendously, and we're currently interviewing to refill that position. I do want to let the board and public know that I might be getting the day wrong, I apologize, but either Saturday or Sunday, maybe it was Friday, we did have a larger than acceptable E. coli reading from our Crown Road wastewater plant. This was due in large part to the significant snow melt, so it kind of inundated the plant with more flow than typical. I guess the good news is, if you're going to have a high E. coli reading, it's nice to have it in the winter when people aren't using the water. So there wasn't, I don't mean to laugh it off, but there wasn't a public health threat in that sense, and it did clear itself up, and our subsequent reading was right on the mark. And we reported it to the state and did all the things that we're supposed to do. So good for that. I do want to know that the VCAM guys have let me know that there are going to be hopefully some technology improvements in this room. They're going to, I don't know if this was reported to you at the last meeting or not, but they're going to work on making some of these items here permanent, so they don't have to keep hauling them in and out for the DRB and Planning Commission. And then eventually there are plans to actually mount permanent cameras here so that they're able to serve us a little bit better and won't break their backs in doing so. And I also want
Can we
to
just,
yeah.
take a quick nod to Ken French, who comes and does so much work for us for VCAM, and I really appreciate it, Ken. There's been a huge improvement, and obviously there are times we still have issues, but years ago, there were many more issues with sound and visual on TV, and so it's gotten a lot better, so thanks to you and everyone else. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry, Joe.
That's okay. And this won't be the last comment I make, but Gary, I really want to tip my cap to you for the last 4 years and thank you for your service. I have a tremendous amount of respect for any volunteer in local government. I think it's a very, very difficult job, no matter who you are. I've worked in 4 different communities here with a lot of board members. There's been a lot of contentious issues. It's not an easy thing to do. You have put in, as a volunteer, more time than anyone else I'm aware of that I've worked on with. You've put in a lot of time. I think that's admirable. And you've always been very, I've appreciated the way that you've dealt with me. There's been times that we've definitely we've not agreed on things, or you've had points of view that are different than mine, but you've been respectful enough to me to talk with me privately about them and give me some pointers that I've appreciated. And it's been a real pleasure to work with you, Gary, and I appreciate everything. And again, I just admire the amount of time that you've put in, not just in the last 4 years that I've known you, but for 10 years now on the board. I think it's just tremendous. And I thank you for your service.
Thank you, Joe. All right, additional public comments. We didn't use up the 10 minutes, so I'm assuming we don't have any more, but does anyone want to say something? Okay, great. Next is entertain, we have a couple of different motions because just one of these require a finding. So does someone want to make the motion, or do you want me to take the lead on this?
No, we'll give her to you.
Okay. Move that the board, I'd entertain a motion for specific finding that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or a person involved at a substantial disadvantage in regard to legal strategy regarding the Conservation Law Foundation's appeal of Shelburne's wastewater treatment plant permits to operate. Moved by Jerry. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Colleen. This has to do with legal issues and strategies. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Then I'd entertain a motion to enter executive session under 1 VSA 313 to discuss legal strategy regarding the Conservation Law Foundation appeal of Shelburne's wastewater treatment plant permits to operate. And under 1 VSA 313 A3 to discuss the annual review of the town manager, and under 1 VSA 313 A5 to discuss a clear and imminent peril to the public safety.
Are we inviting the town manager?
And inviting the town manager to this.
So moved?
Moved by,
three?
excuse
To
me?
all three, right?
To all
Okay.
three.
All right, so moved.
Moved by Colleen, seconded by
Second.
Jerry. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Ken will probably be coming out for a motion on one of these. Thanks. Ken, are you ready? like to reconvene the February 27th, 2018 Shelburne Select Board meeting. Jerry, would you like to make a motion?
I move that we exit executive session and resume the general session.
Second.
Moved by Jerry, seconded by Josh. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I would entertain a motion that the board authorize the town attorney to incur legal expenses up to $10,000 in regard to the Conservation Law Foundation's appeal of Shelburne's wastewater treatment plant permits to operate.
So moved.
Moved by Colleen,
Second.
seconded by Jerry. Any discussion? I'll just say this is a matter of legal strategy, so it's nothing to discuss from the board except to authorize the expenditure of these funds. Anything else from anyone here? Anyone? All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay?
3-1. Someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Colleen,
Second.
seconded by Jerry. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.